Hey everyone, just Alex here with a quick announcement in terms of the Ultimate Effort show. Uh, this is old Xander and I from the council. We just got back from Jeff Con. We had an amazing time. I am currently working on a special Jeff Con recap episode. The editing's taking a little bit longer than I anticipated, but just know that that is in the works. And so we fully intend to do a Jeff Con recap episode once I have a moment to sit down and finish the edits. We met a ton of cool people at Jeff Con. It was an outstanding time. Ran a ton of cool games, played a ton of cool games. We did a ton of awesome Warmaker games, and we did some work on Crown and Skull. We did some work on some other Runehammer products. It was super fun just to sit and play and talk and just go through the whole gaming thing. Met a ton of cool people. We can't wait to showcase some of those great folks that we met. But in any event, stay tuned for that. The other thing that's been going on sort of behind the scenes here at the Ultimate Effort Show, just a reminder that we have our awesome Ultimate Encounter Throwdown that's going on. The deadline is December 9th. We've already gotten an entry that looks just killer. We cannot wait to see the other entries that people send in. Remember, you can win a custom set of Mono Makes Dice, a set of 7 polyhedrals for your one scene or one room encounter. We cannot wait to see all the entries, and so hopefully those will start trickling in here soon. Remember, the deadline is December 9th, so you've still got plenty of time, but just don't forget that's going on. The last thing is that we have been working here behind the scenes to improve our sound quality. I know some of those early episodes are a little bit rough. Hey, we're figuring it out as we go, but I didn't want anyone to think that we were taking it for granted. Quite the opposite. In fact, we are making small improvements every single episode to make the Ultimate Effort show and your enjoyment just that much mo better. Just like hopefully your gaming. But in any event, without further ado, here's our next episode where Joe and I talk about range fighters and maybe a few other things. So sit back, stay tuned, enjoy the dulcet tones of Joe, because you're not here for me. Enjoy Joe's dulcet tones, and we can't wait to see you around the interwebs, the intertubes. Bye, everyone. Hey everyone, welcome to the Ultimate Effort Show with Alex.
And Joe.
And Joe, man, I gotta tell you, we haven't talked in a minute.
Yeah.
Some time has passed.
Right? You guys don't know that out there, but it has been.
That's right, yeah. Our listeners or viewers won't know any different. But I've been on vacation for a week. In
Yes.
beautiful sunny Florida, down in the Keys. Vacationing on the beach. It's a tough life, Joe. It's a tough life.
But... Hey, I'm glad you were there, keeping the sunshine alive for all the rest of us schlubs.
but somebody had to do it. So,
yeah.
But I've missed you, man. I've missed you. And in that time, some cool stuff has happened in the world of RPGs, and specifically in the Runehammer world.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's kind of out of this world, you could say. At least one of them.
Yes, it almost is. So we've got that coming up as our big topic, a current event, so to speak. Although I guess by the time folks see this, it'll be a few weeks past. But I'm excited to talk about it because it's new and it's pretty sick.
It has that new game smell.
Yep, what old Brandish has done. So I can't wait to talk about it with you. And then the other piece is we're going to go behind the sheet, of course, as we always do.
Yes.
And there's an interesting discussion today about abilities for ranged characters.
Yes.
And I thought, consistent with our designing a fighter last time, which was mostly a melee type,
Yep.
we are going to discuss ranged attackers.
Yep. It's very fitting because I think we did actually mention ranged fighters that we'd get to them later. And I guess for those playing the game at home, you might remember this day on the back in the Discord when it was all about the ranged fighters and how do you make archers interesting. Like that's what's really like spurred this. So it's fortuitous that it just happened right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a great topic
Yeah.
because I know you've played some ranged guys. I've played
Yep.
some ranged fighters or attackers in my day, so
Oh,
that's
yeah.
exciting and relevant. And then when we go behind the screen, we talked
Hmm.
last time before we had that awesome interview with Scotty, which
Yes, which was a blast. Oh,
yeah,
Scotty's so awesome.
yeah. By the way, like if you haven't caught that episode, please go back and watch it because Scotty
Right.
is he's just phenomenal, right? Like
Right. He makes you feel good.
yeah,
Scotty puts a smile on your face.
yeah, he's just
He's
unreal.
he's an exciting, adventurous fellow.
Oh, he's so brilliant. He's so creative. He's so good. He's been around forever. He has a ton of experience in the DMC. Like he's just great. And I learned a lot just from talking to
Yeah,
him. So
yeah. He's Gandalf showing up at your Hobbit front lawn.
yeah, right, exactly.
Oh, it's adventure time.
I've arrived precisely when I meant to. All right, so perfect. But we're gonna go behind the screen, and we talked
Mhm.
last time before Scotty about venue, and we talked about that both in person and online. And I thought this time around it would be good to talk about the day has approached. What
Yes.
to do? Like you sat down at the table with your comrades, with your homies, and it's time. What are some of the behaviors I think,
Hmm.
right, that
Right.
that you, Joe, would focus on? What are some of the behaviors
Right.
that I would focus on to try to make it an enriching experience?
Right. Because it's game night, and you got stuff to do right now.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. And I will tell you,
Right.
John, I'm going to be fully transparent. I have not planned for, like, normally I'm a planner. I've had good notes. You're going to get me almost completely extemporaneous to this session. So, all right. But before we dive into those topics, I have to share something with you, Joe. I got a great
Ooh.
message. You don't even know about this.
Ooh.
So this will be exciting for you and our listeners, I hope. But I got the nicest message this week from one of our fellow shields out in Runehammer land, and
Lay
this
it
is
on me.
yeah, and this is what he had to say. It was personally to me. He said, "I have followed Runehammer, Drunkens and Dragons for many years, and have bought most of his game core systems or supported Hankerin's efforts for some time. Having played tabletop RPGs and worked with game developers for 30 years plus, I'm interested to go back to a more minimalist mindset. Hoping to one day contribute to this massively entertaining and exciting machine called the Shield Wall."
Who?
He said, "I recently found all the archived Roll for Effort content on YouTube
Oh.
and was amazed at your GM skill set. Pacing, efficiency of time in those games." And he said the one shot Alien game was brilliant.
Yes.
Many thanks to all of you, to Jason, to Joe, etc., for your continued contributions to the ICRPG universe.
That's awesome.
Isn't that dope?
That's awesome.
Like, and talk about a blast from the past, because it's been a minute since we both,
Yeah.
done
A
Roll
couple
for
years.
Effort. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
been
a couple years.
like pre-pandemic, even I would say almost.
Oh yeah, it was the before times.
Yeah, right. Yes, back
The
back
before times.
back when we all walked to school uphill both ways.
There's some great games back there.
Yep. But anyway, so that was a really awesome message, and
Oh yeah, dude, that's fantastic.
yeah. So that made my week. Like, oh my gosh, like somebody saw some value in my GM skill set, which is what it's all about. Like I've collected all these rusty tools in my box, all along, and to the extent that they can be helpful for somebody, and Joe, I know
Right.
you feel the same. Which is why we're doing
Right.
this.
Yeah.
To the extent
Share
that
what
they
we
can
got.
that they can be helpful, that our thoughts on gaming and this hobby can be helpful, especially if you're new, well, or even if you've been at it for a little while.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. we've both been at it for a little while and always learning new tricks.
Constantly learning, plagiarizing off of you and Dennis and Chuck and all this cool.
Likewise,
Yep.
plagiarizing off of you and Dennis and Chuck
and B and Kelsey. Yep.
And...
yeah, and even X, like he's got some slick moves.
Oh yeah.
So if constantly learning, but if some of the stuff that some of our experience can prove helpful to anybody, man, we just love it. So
indeed.
That if you're out there, I'm gonna say John. If you're out there, John, that's pretty generic. If you're out there, John, just know I'm super grateful, and I know Joe appreciates it too. Cause it's really cool.
You knew my name, like I got goosebumps, and I'm like,
right?
My heart is swelled.
Right? It's just that was a really, really classy email out of the blue, and and what it takes, for somebody to reach out like that, it's pretty special. So, really appreciate it. Very humbling. All right.
Very awesome.
So let's see. We've talked about the beach. We've talked about super nice emails this week in Runehammer Land. Yes. And now I think we have to talk about what came out on Friday. So by the time this airs, it would have come out on September 9th. Free to Patreon. Soon to be available for folks to purchase. But we are talking specifically about Runehammer's take on Spelljammer. A little document called AETHRJAMMR.
That ain't happening. Right? AETHRJAMMR.
Too bright, my friend. Too bright.
Yep.
Too bright.
Too bright.
So.
Yep. AETHRJAMMR.
So, Joe, hopefully you've had a chance to read it.
Yep. I have certainly read through it.
Yep. I've looked through it also.
Yep.
And
I was really excited. I have to say, I think I love the thought of it. Like I've played original Spelljammer. Sure, we chewed the rules all up and played it our way. But I've played the original. I love the concept of sailing ships with actual rigging, moving through space. Dope. Mm-hmm. All kinds of crazy different ship designs. But one of the really cool things here in this space fantasy ship combat update, it's 5e hardcore mode, which that's kind of up over my shoulder. Okay, whew, I got it.
Yep.
Brain had to fight. How do I point in the camera and do it right? But yeah, over here in the corner is our hardcore mode for 5e, which Runehammer take.
Well, and I would just say, Joe, we're going to talk about all the sort of the beauty of this thing. But whether you play 5e, you're into 5e hardcore, which is sort of Runehammer's take on it. Yep. Whether you play ICRPG, whether you're an OSE player, if you're D20 based, I would just say, in general, in terms of your core mechanic, roll under or over, doesn't matter. Or frankly, probably even you could easily adapt this to another system.
Oh yeah, I definitely could see it being easily adaptable.
This is such a perfect rule set if you were into any sort of Spelljammer or ship-based combat. And I appreciate, by the way, what you said, Joe, about playing Spelljammer back in the day. I did not, interestingly.
Oh, no?
No. And I know old Brandish, I know he played for several years in college and had a good time with Spelljammer. I saw the cover at my friendly local game store. I can distinctly remember seeing the covers back in the day for Spelljammer. And it was just never kind of my bag. I always like fantasy. I always like sci-fi. I usually don't like to mix the two. But, and this is an important but, this isn't just spacefaring with D&D, right?
Yeah.
You could use this, forget the whole dwarves in space or whatever aspect to Spelljammer, right? Classic fantasy races in space. Forget outer space. You could do ship-to-ship combat.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, you don't need... it doesn't necessarily need the whole three-dimensional space. You can easily run all of this right out in the ocean.
Correct. Well, out in the ocean.
RPG ocean.
Or as an airship.
Rivers.
Right?
Oh, yeah, airships.
Like airships. Because I would say, Joe, as you know...
Like there's some pulp action happening right there.
The pulp action for you. And I have a certain thing for airships, if you remember correctly.
Yes.
shout out to
Indeed.
Kelsey.
Yep, with that crazy, like the craziest game of chicken ever.
Ever, ever
Ever.
with the Goblin Captain. Yes. So
That was
whether
awesome.
you play classic Spelljammer,
Hmm.
whether you don't come from that background like me, and you like ship to ship combat either in a strict naval fashion, or ship to ship combat in terms of airships, or frankly, I think you could apply these concepts to tanks or
Ooh,
big siege weaponry.
right.
You know,
Land barges. Ooh, like some Mad Max style, like giant rolling barricades or colossal vehicles.
yeah. Oh,
What was that movie? Mortal Engines,
th-
the Peter Jackson movie.
dude, get out of my head because that's just what I was getting ready to talk about with Mortal
Yeah,
Engines.
dude. Oh my god, I want to do that.
Yeah, right. You could
Sorry.
use these
I got a
rules.
little excited.
Yeah.
I want to do that.
Yes. Yeah. You could use these. I want to play the girl with the scarf. Okay. You could play with these rules and have an amazing time. And I think that's one of the beauties of this. One of the best points of this document, right?
Right. Key feature.
Key feature. Thank you. Yes.
Yep.
All right.
100%. My brain hadn't even gotten that far yet.
Yes.
That's awesome.
The other piece that I think is so amazing to AETHRJAMMR is basically what is an extension of the chunk mechanic in ICRPG.
Yes, it's very much like a ported over chunks in more of a more traditional hit point ratioed like D&D style game or other D20 system. Because I mean ICRPG we kind of stay limited in those like 10-point blocks
Yep.
for our hit points. And this kind of looks at more of those things where different things have different sized hit dice and such.
Correct.
Like but it ports over exactly with parts,
Right.
as it were.
Yes, parts instead of chunks. But for folks who are joining us who
Same
don't,
concept.
who don't know anything about chunks, right? Just real fast. So a chunk is basically anything on a vehicle with 10 hit points and an ability,
Yep.
right? So if and the so that could be you've got a machine gun on a car, right?
Yep.
But you've got the oil slick in the back. That's also a 10
Right?
hit
That's
point.
a chunk.
Yep, chunk. Maybe you have those cool spike tires. That's
Oh,
yep. That's
pop
also
out the side.
that's also a chunk. Like if you're building your spy hunter car, right?
Oh, yeah.
And the idea being that if you deplete those 10 hit points, then your vehicle loses that ability, right?
Hell, James Bond's car has chunks.
Oh,
It's got
absolutely.
the pop off with the machine guns. There's a chunk. The rocket launchers. There's a chunk.
Yeah,
The ejector seat. There's a chunk.
the bulletproof like frame and windshield. That's a
Right.
chunk.
The armor plating.
Yes.
Chunk.
Yes. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Good heavens, Bond! What's happened to your Aston Martin? Right? Yes. So
I
that's
hit a little traffic.
yeah, right. Yes. So that would be basically the chunk system. Only here in AETHRJAMMR, it's parts, but simple, same concept. The only difference, as you correctly pointed out, Joe, is that instead of it being a flat 10 hit points plus an ability, it is now basically a die plus
Yeah.
plus an ability.
Right. And the hit points correlate to what that die is. Like if it's a D4, it's a 4 hit point. If it's a D8, it's an 8 hit point.
Correct.
Like it's smooth and clean.
Correct. So you've got D4 parts, D6 parts, D8 parts, D10 parts, and D12,
D12
parts, right?
Yeah.
Both the hit points that it takes to deplete that part or chunk, and also potentially the die that is used. So interestingly, right, you could have a D4 gun. You could also have a D12 cannon.
Oh yeah.
And both
yeah.
sort of do the same thing.
Right.
It's just one's
Well-
easier to destroy and does smaller damage.
Yep.
One
The
is a
other
lot.
is much heftier.
Yes.
Especially when we're looking at some of these other parts that have like 4 hit points or 6 hit points or 8 hit points. If you've got your cannon battery and they're dropping a D12, I mean, you could just obliterate, which is another little part in there. You could obliterate parts, which is awesome. There is, I want to also point out, there's mention of these things stack.
Yes.
So you could have a double battery of these D12 cannons and be firing every round for 2D12 with those bad boys. That's a lot of crew, so you need to have the manpower and everything. I'm stepping ahead. I'm stepping ahead.
Nope.
But we can stack these parts. That's where we're. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. No, Joe. No, you're all over it, man. You're all over it. And then I would say the other thing. So I think that's probably the second key feature of AETHRJAMMR. And if I may, a third one is that the game invites you as both players and a DM to really think about these ships in three-dimensional space. So you're not going to find a 2D top-down map.
Yeah. Yep.
By the way, it does come with assets for
Yes, it does.
virtual tabletop play. They are side view type assets to encourage you to think about the three-dimensionality and the three-dimensional space and how these ships interact in that space.
Yeah, because you're not just seeing like the top-down blueprint that you're used to of like the boat shape to run around. You get the whole side view, so you have like masts up here, and you have like the side wing, and you get the dimensionality of the ship.
Correct. Yeah, almost like a like a 2D scroller, right? Although like on the VTT, you could resize them, right? Like if it's really big, it's up close. If it's really tiny, it's far away. So you can get all those dimensions, right? But I think what's cool about it is that the document also includes a list of maneuvers.
Yes, to kind of help you along.
Yeah, like advanced maneuvers to really kind of wet your whistle almost, or get your brain juices flowing, as far as like things that the crew can do. Do you have that up, Joe? Do you have it handy?
Yep, I was just getting right to the spot there.
Yeah, with some of the examples.
Sure. Yeah, and straight on anybody that's grabbed it, it's right into page 4. We've got under the core systems the uncommon maneuvers, and these are kind of things like Alex was saying, to like help you get your juices flowing of like what can we do. I mean, surely at this point, like, go out and watch some awesome pirate movies,
right?
Because you'll notice from watching any of these other movies, you can look at some of these and go, oh, okay, that's kind of like that thing is. Like we've got some things like present flank. Position your ship with a heavily armed or armored side toward your foe. Parts that are damaged but not obliterated can be presented to absorb fire. So it's kind of just giving you ideas of like, what do we want to do now that we're in the ship-to-ship combat? Well, we've got this armored hull on the side with a hidden cannon battery. Let's present flank.
Yep, present flank. And along with that, the dead man's handshake.
Yep, that's what I was just going to lead into.
Yeah, which I won't reveal. I don't want to reveal it because I want people to go get this document.
Yeah.
But man, like that's so cool.
Right. Other things like quick ones like decoy, use concealment and silent running to convince your foe that you are somewhere else. There's like little maneuvers like that, like, and then just some of these awesome ones.
Oh yeah, the anchor catch.
I was just gonna point that out. I love that move.
Yep. I mean, you could just see it. Like, hang on.
Right. Drop anchor. Let go of the helm, because it's gonna break somebody's arms.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So
there's some great stuff. Shunting maneuver.
Oh my God, it's
stuff.
killer. So
yeah.
I think that is also another key feature, is that it doesn't try to regulate all these maneuvers in terms of game mechanics. It leaves it up to you and your players to envision that moment in the fiction. Yeah. And what would be so cool if you're in your ship and you're going up against another ship, or even like maybe like an installation or an emplacement. Like, oh my God, like how cool are those possibilities, right?
Right. And this like gives a bunch of just great, maneuver ideas for putting yourselves into those, or I guess for acting once you are in those scenarios. Well, is like the better way to put it.
Absolutely. And then along with that, the document covers gravity. So if you are playing in space, how gravity impacts things. It covers inertia and slowing down, which I think is just beautiful. It's
great.
It's actually inverse based on your part, right? Mm-hmm. So, if you've got one of those like D4 ones, right? Like it might. Ooh. Oh. I actually muted myself. If you got one of those D4 ones, that might take like longer or maybe shorter, depending.
Yeah.
If you've got one of those D12 ones.
right in the book though, it actually like it gives a couple of those examples, like a simple inertial stop. That's cut the engines, pull the sails up, and just let your boat coast. That one's got it listed at about D4 rounds. But then some of the other ones, these active braking systems, like
Yep.
the braking chute, it's a simple sail that's built specifically to slow the chute down, and it stops your boat in D8 turns.
Right.
So
But I
it's a
think
bit faster of a turnaround there.
right. But what's interesting, right? So you could have a D4 break, and
Mm-hmm.
that's D4 rounds. But you could
Yep.
also have a quicker break that's D4 turns,
Yeah. Right. Roll
right?
a two, then it's like my action, it's your
And we
action.
stop.
Now the boat stopped.
Yep.
Boom.
Yep.
And that's great. That's
Versus
great.
that D4 rounds where it's just like, I mean, you can just feel that inertia as a result of using the dice. So that's brilliant. It covers engine and fuel, and it talks about the diversity of action as well. In
Mm-hmm.
terms of different challenges that you can throw up against these boat crews. As they're
Right.
maneuvering in these environments. I think
Yeah.
it's just so great and so brilliantly imagined.
Yeah. And it does do it with like, good writing and clean and simple, where it really is just kind of like, come on, guys, like just a little common sense. You don't need a detailed list breaking everything down. If you're pulling on rigging, give me a strength.
Yep.
You make your strength cool. Boom, it's lashed down. Like you're
So
done.
so that's the other piece. So we've
Mm-hmm.
covered the movement and the maneuvers. That's a key feature. But then I would also kind of chunk this up, see what I did? To another key feature, which is to keep it simple in terms of what the crew's doing, right?
Yep. Yep.
So just assign it to a stat and
Yeah.
don't limit your players to these stations, right? And that to me was sort of revolutionary because, as you know, I've run it before where you have stations.
Yep.
You ran it brilliantly in our Reptoid game where we all had kind of stations on our spaceship. But this
All
takes
right.
it to that other level where it's just like anybody could jump in
Yeah. And just
anywhere.
do what needs to be done right there in the moment.
Yes, just describe what you're trying to do
Yep.
and
Yep.
then make the roll and then call for an easy stat that's
Right.
tied to these different types of rolls, right?
Right. Most certainly. Most certainly. I mean, even when it's like if you're not up steering, if you're just a hand somewhere else on the deck, part of the crew, and it's your action, you know that if this boat doesn't turn, it's smashing into, this floating chunk of debris just sitting there in the aether among the gas clouds. You
Yep.
could easily say, well, I'm going to cinch this, I'm grabbing these rigging lines. I'm going to cinch it down to try and like pull the slack out of that sail to help give us a push and yell back, helmsman, on your left. Like I'm going to help get this to him. Like I would give the player something for that. Like,
Oh,
yeah, roll your strength or roll a dex to shore that up.
dude.
And what kind of benefit is that going to add? Like they're turning right now. Like, what's this going to do? There are things that like just the simple things you could throw right in,
Oh,
give the guy at the helm a bump.
oh, absolutely, Joe. And that's a classic example. And I can tell you,
Mhm.
haven't recently been in the Florida Keys and been sailing on a boat. That the captain at the wheel isn't the only one who's necessarily moving the ship in a direction. I mean, yeah, granted, the rudder plays an important piece,
Yep.
but if you've got somebody who's unfurling the main sail and then moving it into position, that's going to catch the wind and pull the boat potentially in another direction. Or if
Yep.
you have somebody,
Helmsman's got to be on point.
yeah, if you've got somebody who's unfurling the jib and swinging it into position, like that's going to affect the boat. If you're dealing with the keels, like whether they're slicing into the water or they're running up inside the boat, like if you have one of those keels that you can raise or lower like
Right.
that, that's going to make an impact on
Yeah.
on your boat, right? So all of those sorts of functions could be done by anybody in the moment. That huge
Right.
like line toss or anchor throw to kind of whip
Yes.
your ship in another direction,
Yep.
you know, all of that stuff could
Pull
be.
alongside for boarding. Hooks out.
Yep, exactly.
Right.
You
You
know,
need to close the distance, run out the sweeps, and there come the oars.
yes.
Ah.
And notice we just covered like four or five things just with navigation. we haven't even talked about like cannons or harpoon guns or like climbing the rigging or the mast or any of those sorts of things. And so
these are ships with three-dimensional space, like they're not landing in water. I would totally have a scene in the under rigging. Like I'd figure you got to have sweep sails that come out on the sides. Like now there needs to be under rigging. Get underneath the boat while they're moving through this 3D space. And...
Oh, absolutely. Or could you imagine, like trying to board a craft by swinging over stealthily like sappers, like stuck to the bottom of the ship of an enemy ship, and you're trying to claw your way up.
Dude, sneak in right underneath them. They don't even know you're there. You're running stealth. You send your boarder up the mast. Whoop, he's cabled off and jumps up into the Aether and drifts. Grab onto the underneath of their boat, hooks his way through. I want to play it.
Cuts a hole, drops a line. Everybody scurries up like rope ladders out.
Right? We just Trojan horsed your boat.
Exactly.
Bunch of dudes hiding inside already.
Yes, and that is on page 3, which talks about how ships don't do things, players don't do things, and then this or ships don't do things, the crew does things. Yes. And this call to action for the DM to create these challenges and these moments for players to really shine and have these awesome opportunities. It's just so great. And then the other thing, it talks about changing the difficulty or the target number in ICRPG terms.
Yep.
And one of the best ways, it talks about, somewhere between 3 or 6. So that would be easy, or maybe even or hard, or maybe even double easy or double hard. Or I think just roll a d6.
All right. Keep it variable.
Yeah.
Right. If it can be up to 6, roll a d6. How much harder did things just get?
Right. Exactly. Oh, you're on a target 10. Well, let me roll a d6.
Oh, lucky shot. It's only 1.
Now you're on target 11.
Right. Lucky shot.
Yep.
This dice was favoring the players today.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I think that is amazing. And then the other, the final cool part, I think, which everybody wants to know, is how to build a ship. Yeah. So not only does this document include several pre-built ships of different types, so we've got...
They are cool.
Yep, we've got a Cloud Chaser, which is an Argosian keelboat.
Yeah, I think Cloud Chaser is like the ship's name. Designation.
Oh, yeah, that's its name.
Yeah.
Yes, and so an Argosian keelboat. We've got a Kraken-type ship. We've got the Galleon-type hull. We've got the
super rare,
the thrust rock type. Yeah. If you're a dwarf, you're probably in a thrust rock. That kind of thing.
And that's kind of a cool idea for a ship where it's an asteroid somebody hooked up engines and a sail to.
We carved it out.
Right?
Yes, exactly. And
now our boat's a freaking rock, ramming speed, Mr. Sulu.
Yes. So that has all of those ships. They're pre-made. They have suggested abilities. So your crew in your game, you could just grab one of those and go to town straight away.
Yep.
If you're
Change the name and rock it.
Yep. Or if you're running one shot or something, right? Just grab a boat and go.
Yep.
Or there are rules on constructing ships and the construction limits.
Yes, indeed.
Which is just epic. In taking different parts as players earn them to configure their ship in the way they want to configure it.
Find, buy.
Yep, and I gotta say, Joe, there are tons of different parts.
Yo, gosh, yeah, there are pages of different tables for these parts.
Which, as you know, I'm a loot monkey. I love loot. I'm a gear guy. I love all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So you've got a D20 table just on propulsion parts.
Yeah.
A D20 table. Oh yeah.
I do want to point out in the ship construction where it first kind of talks about the limits, different sizes of ships can only hold so many parts. Correct. So you kind of have to be smart and pick and choose, and maybe this part will do for now until we can get something better.
Right.
And I mean, there's multiple things.
Well, right, and remember too, right? You can always have them at different dice too, so you could.
Yep.
You could always upgrade it, right? You could turn your D4 into a D12 eventually over the course of your campaign, right?
Right.
But propulsion parts, weapons and rams, armor and utility, crew equipment, and different things in the Aether,
Right.
which is awesome. Um, so tons of tables. It's got an awesome rules summary sheet at the end, and then I think probably the last thing worth mentioning, right, is there are two adventures, right? Or no, I'm sorry. There's one
Yep.
called
One adventure.
called Last Rites on,
Yep.
on across 2 pages.
Yep. But one of the nice things also in the rule summary sheet is just to kind of help out the GM and help the players out. There are like, I guess you could say like ideas or different crew actions, kind of like broken down by what stat they might fall under. Just if you need like a little hint, like they have crew actions based on strength: hoist the anchor, retrieve line, hold course in a terrible storm, catch a crewman falling overboard,
Exactly.
hold fast if a ram or weather jolts the deck.
Exactly.
So like there's already like things to help get your mind going to lock in what stats maybe should be used for everything.
Including
and it goes through all of them.
Including even charisma.
Yeah, exactly. Including charisma.
Yeah,
because sometimes we fail those.
Well, and I would say what's so great about that is, right, I would totally print that sheet off and hand it out around the table,
totally.
or make sure my players have it.
Totally, because it gives nice briefs of everything else, from the engines to how you handle obliteration. I mean, all of it. Weapons, rams. It's a great little sheet.
Yeah, it's great.
And a great little module or whole little booklet or I don't know what the heck to call it. It's a book.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's a book, and then I said it's got an adventure outline in there for you to run an adventure in this sort of AETHRJAMMR world, or as I said, port it over into your favorite game. Run it. Use these rules to run ships at sea. I would totally do it in a heartbeat. Use these rules to run airships, which I'm fond of dwarven airships. It's just so good. So, AETHRJAMMR, Joe and I give it, 2 thumbs up. Oh,
yep, both of them.
Four thumbs. We give it 4 thumbs. Turns out, 3 if you count my, Well, actually, since we're 3-thumbed maniacs, that's 12 thumbs among the 2 of us.
Exactly.
So it's full 12 thumber. All right. So AETHRJAMMR, check it out. It's amazing. All right. Well, Joe, that was a lively topic.
That was.
Yeah.
Ooh, had my head in the clouds.
Oh no! Here we go. I need to shut you down. So let's sail away from that, and we will move on.
Right, anchors down, full stop.
I can't compete with Joe's punnery. All right, so I think now our topic today, it is time to go behind the sheet.
Yeah.
All right. So Joe, remind me, what are we talking about behind the sheet?
All right. So behind the sheet on our player side here, we are looking at fighters again, but very specific kinds of fighters, ranged fighters. We're looking at like the Legolas or like the I almost said Dick Tracy, but he wasn't really much of a shooter. Yeah, he shot people. Like a Quigley. There we go. Mm-hmm. Quigley, older Quigley down under. A fighter at range. Yeah. Ranged weapon expert, kind of.
Yeah, absolutely.
What we're looking at.
Yeah. So Joe, I'm curious because I know you've played some range guys. What's sort of your kind of your go-to build or your kind of go-to vision for a ranged fighter?
Dang, that's a tough one because sometimes it's a split. Sometimes sometimes my brain's like, I want to shoot a whole lot of things. Like I want that classic Legolas moment where I'm just dropping like 3 or 4 arrows at a time.
Yep.
Which ICRPG has builds for that.
Yeah.
There's stuff in there for that.
I mean, we could just sort of call it the multi-shot fighter, right?
Right.
Or the multi-shot ranged attacker.
Right. Which Al Capone was technically one of those. Or back in our Cyberpunk.
Yep.
Multi-shot. But then the other way I kind of like to go is like that. I guess funny enough, I already gave the example like that Quigley. He's the guy who he's watching the target moving out. All right, and he gets his sights up, checks it, dials it, pulls a bullet out, and just holds it for a minute, checks his weapon. Guy's still running. He's
Yep.
taking his time because he
He
knows
knows.
this shot is going to go all the
Way.
way. Nice. Dude, that was almost like we timed it.
Almost like we planned it.
It was like a rehearse. Yeah, but like those are like the two like pinnacle ones for,
Yeah. So the
when I
precision,
come into it.
the precision
Yeah.
guy.
Yes. Slow and steady will shoot that hair so the turtle can win.
Yeah, that's epic. So, and then, I think maybe to that I would add maybe two archetypes, sort of
Mhm.
on my side, and one would be the high mobility, ranged attacker. So, picture the sniper who takes that critical shot and then displaces. So somewhere along the way, I'm looking for somebody who, like Legolas in a way, can
Mhm.
either flip up into high spaces or climb into a place, or who makes the shot, takes a move, or maybe makes a double move and takes a shot, like slides into position and makes the shot, or even makes the shot and then bugs the heck out and gets to a different
Yeah.
spot. So high mobility would kind of be an archetype for me. And then I think maybe the other one might be sort of the high DPS. So
Right.
you can achieve that I think with a multi-shot
Mm-hmm.
person, but maybe you're looking for that ranged attacker who, when they hit, right, they just do a truck ton of damage,
Right. Right.
in terms of
Or
helping out the
gets,
team.
or it even gets bigger the more they hit them, kind of a situation.
Yeah, exactly.
That higher DPS, exactly.
So like the Sergeant Talbots, like from your pulp game,
Right.
who just really want to put a hurting, like with his Tommy gun, like really want to put a hurting on some guys, pretty fast and hard. So,
Yep.
yep.
Or even Von Syke, the times he pulled out the elephant gun.
Yeah.
That was a big hitter.
Yeah, exactly.
That
So
was awesome.
so I'm curious, if you're going to go multi-shot,
Mm-hmm.
as sort of an archetype, what does your build look like, in general? Like, what are some things that you're thinking about?
All right. Well, the quickest, easiest one is, I mean, obviously, I would still call myself a warrior, but I would pull right out of the hunter's starting ability. I would take that quick draw. That's already your multi-shot is built in.
Exactly.
That's from the Alfheim. That's in Alfheim side.
Yep.
Quick draw and a ranged attack of modified 15 or plus, you can shoot again. I mean, if I was going the other way, if we were like sci-fi, there's already one there too. You got the MG specialist, D4 shots on a natural 5, your weapon's empty.
Yep.
But you're hitting 1 to 4 targets based on that die roll.
Exactly.
So like there's two like right out of the book ways between gunner and hunter that are already like built in for that multi-shot, that rapid fire kind of hunter.
Yeah.
And again, like these can be skinned to a bow. Like,
well, sure.
It's easily I could call it, this quick draw works with my bow, so I can get that Legolas run. Ding 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 ding.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. What else?
And see, that's where it gets trickier. I mean, I would definitely want to take a bow, but I think for the starting loot, I would probably put a crystal scope. I mean, I know there's the whole thing with like the arcane cartridge where I could up my shots from up into energy damage or a D10, that magic effort. But I don't know. I kind of like that crystal scope.
Yeah.
Weapon attacks or with that weapon are never hard.
Never hard.
That's like a huge boon.
Huge.
Never hard is huge.
Yeah. Or even, maybe if you're looking for more of that precision type in terms of what you were describing, right? The original crystal scope in Ghost Mountain was the scope where when you affix it to the weapon, you spend that round aiming.
Yep.
And then
auto hit.
Yep. And then on your next round, well,
max damage?
it's actually I think it makes your roll not hard if you were aiming for vitals.
Oh, that's right.
Yep.
Original Ghost Mountain. That's right.
But we have since played that if you spend a round aiming, your next shot either auto hits or it does ultimate or both.
Right.
In various configurations, right? Because Ruby had some of that in our Altered State game as an operative, those sorts of things.
Right. Indeed.
Yeah. What
Okay,
else? Oh, sorry. Go
I
ahead.
just I just had to look over real quick the gunner starting loot first module. It's your quick draw.
Yep.
Attacks 15 plus earn another attack. That combined with MG specialist, you are spraying a lot of lead
Yep.
or energy. Pew, 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 pew.
Yep.
You're a GI Joe battlefield all by yourself.
Red and blue lasers.
They're going everywhere. Yeah, I think those starting. I think those would probably be my aims.
Yeah.
I mean, that
Yeah.
MG specialist and burst module. I mean, I would clear it with the game master because that could be a potential lot of shots.
Well, and I can't remember. Refresh me, Joe. Is it 13 plus?
15 plus.
15
It
plus,
was
yeah.
changed in Master Edition.
Yeah.
15 plus.
Because the old speed quiver, right? That's sort of your archetype. You're sort of your go-to whenever you're making that sort of multi-attack type character where you kind of are
Speed
able to,
quiver from 2E.
yes, where you're able to sort of chain attacks together. And I will say I have a huge affinity for that type of character as well. I consider it sort of the thin the herd character. So so a lot of times when I'm approaching character builds, I'm always trying to think like, how can I be helpful to my team? How can I be of service? What is the one thing that I can do really well? And that is, oh, all those dudes out on the periphery or all those other dudes at range, I can take those guys out and let my teammates focus on other stuff.
Right. Focus on those doors that need to be opened, or stopping that ritual in the moment, or the cave troll in our face. Drop that. Let them handle the cave troll, and I'll pick out all the rest of the orcs that are streaming through the door.
Exactly. All right, that's awesome. And I think that really is sort of the go-to. Like some, some sort of burst module, speed quiver, like something like that.
Especially for that rapid fire.
Especially. I'm curious though, Joe, what is your take on a precision build? I talked a little bit about Crystal Scope and using it old school Ghost Mountain style, but I'd be curious, what are you thinking if you're thinking build and you're going to build a precision guy, like kind of where are you going there? Like the guy who just he doesn't miss.
Right. I mean with him, like I would definitely think like if it was a more modern time, it would be like a longer gun. He would be like the lay down and cover kind of guy. If we were in Alfheim, or fantasy, I would look at, either one of those goblin flintlocks, a rifle, but that might be too loud in fantasy.
Yep.
So the next step would be probably the crossbow.
Yep.
Not only is the crossbow crit on a 19, which is a bonus.
It's a bonus.
If I couple that with, again, checking with the GM, couple that with some of the starting stuff for, it's on this side, out of Altered State, I would be looking at the operator.
Yep.
I believe has the thing where that's the if you aim, it becomes ultimate damage. And I think they even like step up later to even better things. But I think for precision, I would probably go that route where I've already got this crossbow, so it's going to hit nice. And if I could bump it up to ultimate with that added crit range, if I could crit on a 19 or 20, and I'm already rolling ultimate because I spent my round aiming.
Yes.
Boom. And then later on down the road, if I get one of those other boons, also out of Altered State, I could see this working in, where your shot hits the next guy in line. If they're lined up, you're like going to clip multiple people because your bolt's going through. That's another beautiful like moment for that precision hitter.
Yep.
Which, fun enough, in the sharpshooting world, if you shoot two guys with the same bullet, they actually call it a Quigley because of the movie. Go watch the movie. It was awesome.
That's epic. Epic.
Yeah, but I think I would look for those rounds with more of like a precision sharpshooter.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I would probably put more points in dex. I don't usually like to focus fire my stats, but I'd give that a 3.
Well, I mean, yeah, right. At least, I mean, that's sort of where I was going. Like, if you were making the precision guy or gal, isn't that sort of where you'd make your focus? Would be to make sure that they just hit.
Yeah.
Right. And I can just say, so one of my all-time classic ranged fighters was a halfling in 5e named Bell Greenbag. Bell. Hello, my name is Bell Greenbag. Bell was a ranged fighter, and his of course in 5e it gets ridiculous even at level 1 was something like +6 or +7 to
Right.
hit, and then by the time he was 5th level and picked up an extra attack, he was crazy. But the thing
Right.
about
My
Bell,
minimum roll is a 12.
right? The thing about Bell is that Bell just doesn't miss, right? And that was the part that I felt like, hey, if I'm helping my team, right? So kind of back to that concept. If I'm
Mhm.
helping my team, this guy is just the sure shot because of that
Yeah.
high, that high dex bonus, that high to hit bonus, right?
Right.
Same thing there.
Heck
Anything
yeah.
else you would think about in terms of the precision character, Joe?
Um, hmm. I mean, it almost feels like it touches a little on you would want them to be a higher mobility because the precision character is really like, at least in my head, it seems more of like it's like a longer range focus. So I think
Mm-hmm.
you would want them to, whether you're going like you had mentioned, like the hit and run type character for precision,
Yes.
you drop your shot, then mobility moves somewhere else. I would think either for that run or for just catching back up.
Yeah.
Like if you're all the way in the back of the map and your whole group is up here and they're ready to like cut in through the door of like Kalendor's temple, and you're like,
Right.
guys, I'm still back at the entrance on the other side of the courtyard. It's gonna take me 3 moves to get there.
Right.
Like,
Or if you're
be a
way
little
up in if
faster.
you're way up in the tower.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
You're up in the
You're
tower
up in the
watching.
sniper position. Yes. So yep. So before we get there on high mobility, I think I would add one last thing. Is there are various abilities throughout the Runehammer loot and
Mm-hmm.
milestones that make things easy, or these roles are always easy, or you could
Yep.
even just go straight up like tag, like, hey, you're a sharpshooter, you have the sharpshooter tag.
Right.
Your rolls are never hard, or your rolls are always easy.
Right.
I would
Rolls are always easy at far.
Yeah, exactly. I would go, with something like that, or you never miss from close in. Something along those lines to sort of capture that idea that this person just doesn't miss.
And cross your fingers to, on that D100 loot table, roll up that seeker bow.
Yeah, right,
I
exactly.
know that came up in the discussion, and whew, that seeker bow is amazing,
Seeker bow, the green bow, like there are some
right?
pretty epic named bows.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep. All right. So for high mobility,
yes. Lay it on me.
well,
How would you build this high mobility?
well, honestly, I think if you go all the way back to 2E days,
Mm-hmm.
the scout had the winged boots,
Yes.
which was you could move, take an action, and move again,
Yep.
or you could take your action and move twice, or you could move twice, take
Mm-hmm.
your. I would go some variation of winged boots. I think there it was a non-attack action, but
Yeah,
again,
I think originally.
I would work with my DM if that was my concept. Like, hey, I want to make this person who takes the shot and displaces, or they slide into position, like after a long move.
Right.
Um,
That's any nuance.
I would definitely go there. I would definitely take a grappling hook, so that all my climbing rolls are like +3 or easy or
Right.
something
That
like
tool
that.
effort
Yep,
or the tool bonus.
to get into position. Um, but I think in terms of example here, I'm gonna go sci-fi and talk about my space cowboy Cord, who was awesome with a carbine, but he had blip module. And
Yes.
so
That's a piece of loot.
and so I would go almost straight blip module. Think carbine and in close weapon, maybe even a shotgun, where
Mm-hmm.
you just blip right behind a fool and take the shot, or you take the shot and then you blip away. That sort of high mobility sort of range character. I
Yeah.
mean, in terms of like shooting, they're not going to be the multi-shot person. They're not necessarily super precise with those high bonuses, or they don't miss that sort of thing.
Yeah.
They're going to be solid on the shooting, but what makes it cool is that they can maneuver themselves into those positions to take those
Yeah.
kind of cool shots. You know?
Right. Because I mean, if somebody's in behind cover, I could spray and pray all I want. I'm just gonna be shooting a wall and not the guy. But that high mobility, you could have the heavy guy, or I guess with bow, whatever, nail
Yep.
the guy down, and that high mobility, bink, pop, bink.
Yeah.
in, guys out, and gone.
And I
Like
would just say
with
too,
some
if
teamwork play.
let's say you're playing an Alfheim game, don't be afraid to take the blip module and put it on a fantasy character, right?
Oh yeah,
It
one hundred
doesn't
percent.
have to be a piece of tech. You are in a realm where magic items
Yeah.
do exist, and maybe you just explain it that they're like, like some dark elf with two scimitars and boots of speed.
Yeah. I mean,
That
hell, even in Pulp, X had one
yeah,
for his masked vigilante, Mister
right.
Mystic.
He just turned up behind fools and cracked their heads together, right?
Yeah. Or
So
he used it to change costume, like
right,
that blip
or
module, and it wasn't like super tech. It was more on the magic side. It was that lunar stone,
yeah,
the
or
moon rock that helped him.
yes, or even Dennis's damn fear, who was he
Yes.
was he was a bit like a Death Eater, right? He
Yep.
apparated with like
Right.
like and
Turned to
appeared,
black smoke.
yeah, and appeared, right?
That's right. That's right.
So any of that sort of high mobility type of range person, I think, could be really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Zipping all around the battlefield to get in the right position to take that critical shot, and then to move away before you yourself are targeted.
Yeah. And reskinning other objects, totally a great way to fit something in.
Yep.
Or not fit it in. That makes it sound like you have to work really hard. You really don't have to work hard.
No, you
It's
don't.
a magic ring, or
Boots
it's a
of speed,
talisman.
right?
Yep.
It's your lucky amulet, right? Like, don't be
Right.
afraid to get creative, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, imagine taking the shot and then you blip behind cover, or you teleport behind cover, and then
Yep.
you yourself can't be targeted.
Right.
Or
Blip
at least
module. It's a ring of teleportation. There you go.
right. Well,
Boom.
the DM then has to work really hard then for the enemies to target that character. So
Oh yeah. Yeah.
good options there.
Hell yeah. That was tasty. Like I can't believe I forgot the blip module.
Ah,
I've seen
man.
it put to use so many beautiful times.
Well, this is why this is why I think this is awesome, Joe, to have these conversations between the two of us and our different approaches. Like we cover a lot of cool ground.
Right?
So then that kind of brings us maybe to the DPS character. Like what maybe are you thinking there?
Yeah. Ooh, the DPS. Like if I really wanted to hit, man, just a whole lot of damage, hard and fast, like it might almost sound a little weird, but I think I would pull some stuff out of the bard. At least one thing
Mm-hmm.
to get that higher DPS. I mean, it would be more singular focus at a time
Yep.
for that ranged guy.
Yep.
I think. I mean, obviously, this isn't counting the starting loot, which would have to be, crossbow or a bow, or I would want
Right.
something along those lines.
Right.
But the starting ability I'm looking at is provoker, and I would maybe look at looking at talking with my GM about making it a provoking shot. Normal provoker doesn't say it needs a roll, but I would ask about, hey, if I make a roll to hit the guy, because obviously I'm shooting him, yeah, it'll do some damage, but now that guy is like enraged, like my shot provoked him that he's going to focus on me, which could help with kiting a guy around. But then if you couple that with what the heck is the other one? The heirloom,
Yep.
which is where I would take my weapon. I would heirloom my weapon. This was my father's bow.
Yep.
And so this weapon always does ultimate when dueling. So this bow, I've already provoked the guy. Provoker makes it so that they cannot resist dueling with me. I hit that provoking shot, which was like, it might not even have to do damage. It's that one that like shing and shoots off his epaulette or knocks like the feather off his helm. And that big bad's like,
Right.
mother, what?
Flips his visor up. Ting!
Yeah, exactly. The one that says, hey, over here, dude.
Right.
So he's already focused. So then all your shots are going to be dropping ultimate. Like I would totally skin stuff out of the bard.
Yep. Break
Because like that gets
shoot
an
that-
ultimate.
Shoot that antler off the stag helmet.
Exactly. Right. And I would put points in ultimate. Like for this one, I would
Yeah.
probably split between, weapon effort and ultimate effort.
Yeah.
I would,
Mhm.
because like I would definitely want points there.
Yep.
So like that's like a cool thing that's going to hit with a lot of damage, because like that sets up kind of a pattern too. And I wouldn't be afraid of using the pattern. Provoking shot. Now I'm dueling and I'm just going to blow the hell out of them with ultimate.
Exactly.
And it only gets better if I nat 20.
Exactly.
Or if I drop a hero coin on it, because now I'm rolling multiple ultimate dice.
Exactly.
Like, that's where I would build for if I was going for like some high DPS. I would reskin some bard abilities.
I love it. I love it. Well, and I'm going to tell you, I'm not too far from you, but I'm going to take a little bit of inspiration from our buddy Dennis, who's playing an elemental archer.
Yes.
So out of the gate, right, like his bow and his shots do this magic energy
Mhm.
effort. So I would, look along something along those lines, like, hey, again, work with your DM, but I'm going to take like Fire Blast,
Oh
as
yeah.
one of my starting abilities or milestones. And the idea is that every time I shoot this bow, I'm doing D10.
Right. I'm shooting this fire blast because it's
Exactly.
my
I'm shooting a
spell.
Fire Blast, or I'm just be like, hey man, like I want to start with a green bow and do
Yeah.
energy damage with that thing. Like, can I start with that?
Yeah.
Maybe not for a starting character, but maybe your DM's like, yeah,
Right.
man, take the green bow. Like
Right.
that you want that to be your starting ability, go there. But some type of magic bow that
Mhm.
makes you sort of hard hitting, and then maybe with that elemental effect, right? You're doing fire. Maybe you've got an
Oh
ice
yeah.
arrow. Maybe you've got
Right.
a lightning arrow, right? You've
Right.
got some things for different circumstances, perhaps.
Right. Yeah. What is that out of the monk or the priest class or healer? Like if you took that elemental, I think not only are they always easy if you're outdoors or nature magic or something like that,
Correct.
but also the other one that lets you switch them between things.
Exactly. But then it's your bow
Yeah.
that's doing that kind of work, or maybe a magic
Right.
quiver.
Got firebolt, but I'm changing it to ice because that's a lava monster.
Exactly, exactly. And how epic would that be, right? And then then you put you're already doing D10, put some points into your magic effort, and and there you go. Like you have a very kind of high DPS
Yeah.
character. So that would be outside of as you talked about, just saying, hey, I want to reskin the great sword as a bow. I have this great
Right.
bow that always does ultimate.
Right. It shoots small spears.
Right.
Right. Like everybody saw Boromir get tagged by those orc arrows. Those things were massive.
Exactly. That's
Like it shoots arrows like that. It is a
yes.
war bow.
Yes. It shoots
Very
through
few in the
schools.
land. Right? It shoots through shuls. Right?
Yep.
Very few people in the land could draw this bow back.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that's tasty.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
man. Dennis's character, that like arcane elementalist style archer is really dope.
Yep. Yeah. Really,
Pretty
really good.
dope.
Really good. Excuse me. All right. So we have talked about now kind of really four kind of archetypes for
Yeah.
for a ranged specialist. And there are other obviously milestones and loot that you could reskin.
Oh,
And what I would just encourage
always.
people to do, is get creative. Like Joe and I built, four kind of easy character concepts here that you could
Mhm.
grab and drop into any game and have a marvelous time. But there are other options out there, like get super creative. We would love to hear from you guys, like down in comments, like
Yeah.
what are some of your
Yes.
favorite ways to play a ranged character, across all the universes.
Right? All the Runehammer verses.
Yeah, and
Like mix them. Oh,
yeah,
dude, mixing some stuff out of uh oh gosh, brain fart. Out of superheroes, Vigilante
yeah, out of
City.
Vigilante City,
Holy crap, dude. We
yeah,
could build some stuff.
you can build some stuff, right? Like
Yeah, but folks, yeah, like
oh yeah, like what's the guy that can like slow down time, right, to take his shots, like like
yes.
that would be epic. Um,
Oh
but I was
man.
also thinking, too, even for like our 5e friends, right? Like Bell Greenbag was premised upon this idea that he had a high to hit bonus +7. Like he didn't miss. I think it got something crazy like +9 even at early
Right.
levels. And then when he
Yeah.
had extra attack, right? So one thing you could just do instead of like multi-shot, you could just be the guy and just say, hey, it's my milestone. I just want an extra attack.
Right?
I don't need to chain them together. Like every time I roll a 15, I just want in ICRPG. I just want to have an extra attack. Now I know some people are like, well, that slows the game down. Well, I mean, sometimes you're already rolling to do a multi attack if you have
Yep.
um,
Yep.
if you have burst module or something like that.
Quick draw. Yeah.
Quick draw. Yep. So so just roll real fast. Roll your two attacks. See if you hit. Roll your damage and don't slow your table down. But I could easily see somebody just saying, you know what, DM, for my milestone, I just want to attack twice with my bow.
Right? I'd let it happen.
Yeah,
Like,
like
take it, dude. Hell yeah.
yeah, like that's my vision. And the reality is, like we play a lot in VTT. Attacking twice sometimes happens by accident anyway. Like you misclick
Right.
and you're like, oh, I meant that first 20. But
Right. Not the second.
but in a
Right.
VTT, like those rolls could happen really fast, and you could
Yeah. Yeah.
still keep your game moving.
You know, and to be honest, on either side of it, whether I'm running a game or playing, and somebody else has like the burst module or the quick draw, if they're just like hammer, 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 and like they keep dropping shots, I just sit there. I'm like, yes, keep going. Like I get excited. Dude, you dropped 4 skeletons this round. That's dope.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Keep going, keep going.
I will say on that, I think some people worry about that, about chaining attacks. The reality is eventually the dice will fail that person.
Yep.
They won't be able to continue to do that forever. Although if they did, it would be an epic night.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
and I think,
Everybody would go home happy.
right, I think celebrating that ability instead of shying away from it is really sort of the key. I do understand the concern. You don't want that player outshining everybody else at the table, which is totally understandable. And if that is the case, like you can, as a DM, you can do things to
Yeah.
to keep that from happening. Like good luck, like against like 50 chubs, right? Like
Yeah.
you're gonna thin some of them, but the players are gonna be super glad you're there thinning them.
Oh yeah, I
Right?
was gonna say if there are 50 chubs, everybody's gonna be on the edge of the seat.
Yeah.
Keep shooting,
Keep
hanging
shooting,
on
bro.
that dice.
Keep shooting. Yes.
Right? He's got a +3, so we need him to roll at least a 12 to keep firing.
Yeah, exactly. So, like don't panic about those sorts of things. All right. Killer, I think we've exhausted some awesome fighter archetypes.
Yeah.
Let's now go behind the screen.
Oh yeah. Ooh,
All
this
right.
feels all right. Chairs
Yeah,
are comfy
yeah,
on this side.
yeah. Got my DM hat on now. Yeah, you can see it.
Right. Oh, hold on, DM.
Yeah,
Boom.
yeah,
I got the DM eyebrows on now.
yeah. So we want to talk about, all right. So now we've selected the venue. We've invited people over. We've
Yep.
pulled them online, and
Yep.
and it's the first night. Like we want to kick
Yeah.
things off and get the game going in a way. Well, let's back up. Like, just ask you, Joe. Like, what would your aims be for that first night, that first session? You're going to start a
Right.
new campaign. Like, what are your aims? Maybe.
Right. It's game night. We're sitting down to play. Do I have my prep done? I think so. Oh, wait, maybe I should double check. It's game night. The first thing I'm gonna do, make sure, did I get all of the little, at least the basics covered for what I'm gonna need? Do I have not that I had to go crazy deep into prep, but do I have at least 3 cool rooms or 3 interesting rooms? Like those are the things I'm gonna look at. Like, am I prepared? Did my prep prepare me
Yep.
for the
And we haven't talked
posthumous
about
game?
prep yet, right? Like,
Yeah, we have not.
We need to. We should talk about prep.
Oh yeah, we're definitely going to cover that.
But this is the night. Like you're sitting down.
Yes.
People are there. Like what are
Right.
your concerns? What are some of the things that you're worried about?
All right. Well, I mean, obviously, first off, if we're already at game night, there's a really good chance I already know everybody. So that's one thing I don't have to worry about. If this was like a convention game or something, got to say hellos. You need at least 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe not even that much. Meet and greets.
Yep.
Got to say hello and like introduce yourself.
Break the ice.
But
Yep.
but I think the big first things that I am looking at is are my dice easily reachable? Are my notes in the right spot so that I don't have to like shuffle and dig? Like, do I have the things out easily available that I am going to need? Is my room design ready to go?
Yep.
Anything that I'm feeling funky about, that I think those are my first steps. Is I'm kind of like running my mental checklist of what the stuff, like what I've got. Do I have things that are possibly challenging? Did I remember to make sure that I've got things spotlighted for the potential, for the characters at the table? Do I even know what these characters are?
Right.
Right? Like, there's a couple like mental checklist things, and a lot of the time I don't exactly know. Like, so I know a lot of times we'll share our characters through and stuff, but like I'm honestly not concerned or looking to see what it is. Like,
Yep. But you know what? Hopefully though, if your players have watched our behind the sheet portion, they will have already come to you with some cool ideas, and you'll
yes,
have that dialogue. So
right,
you'll at least have a sense.
right. You'll potentially have been asked, "Hey, can I reskin some of these bard abilities
Yep.
to make a kick-ass ranged fighter?"
Yep.
So like, yeah, so there's like things like that I would already know, and that's where it would come into, do I have appropriate spotlights for everybody? Because you
Yes.
do want to give everybody a chance to shine.
Absolutely.
But I
Absolutely.
think that rambling tangent, I think, is like, I guess, a little glimpse into what happens up in this noggin here
Yeah.
sometimes. But that's kind of my checklist on those first steps I'm going to do on game night.
I 1,000,000% agree, Joe. And I'm sort of in the same camp. Like I want to make sure that I have all my stuff ready to go. Now I'm not a huge over prepper. Like you, I like to have about 3 rooms. I think that's a sweet spot for an evening of play. It's not so much that people are going to be squirming in their seats or checking their phones. Like, how long have we been at this? And by 3 rooms, we really mean 3 killer
Encounter
encounters.
spaces.
Correct.
Yeah.
3 discrete spaces with discrete encounters. I want all that ready to go so that I know that I'm prepared, and I've got all that in my journal. I've got my dice. I've got all the stuff that you talked about.
I have one quick question for you.
Yeah.
These 3 rooms, these 3 encounter spaces, do those necessarily have to be linked to each other? I mean, I understand they're going to be linear, but are they just the beginning of the canyon, the middle of the canyon, the end of the canyon?
Yeah. That's
Just, in case other, like, the question popped in my head, and maybe people would like to know.
Well, that's exactly what it is. And I do want to talk about this a bit more, Joe, when we talk about encounter design. But for me, I don't like mundane. And so this sort of dovetails to sort of what I'm thinking about is I want to get players into the action as quickly as possible. And I want to keep them in the action.
Yes.
And by keeping them in the action, I mean immersed. Right? I'm the DM. I want them to have a fun time. I want them to be in this fantasy world and rolling dice and cheering and having a great time. Especially if you're new, I don't want to have to think about, well, how are they going to get from the start of the canyon to the middle of the canyon? Do they take a boat? Do they fall off a cliff? Like, I don't know. I don't have enough horsepower in my head. I can't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday. So I don't have enough horsepower in my head to try to come up with all of that. And I think that's where a lot of beginning DMs fail. We've talked about, don't build a world. Stop and think for a minute about what that sounds like. Like, I'm going to build a world. You are? Really? Like, I bet you $1 you can't build a golf course.
Right.
Like, you know how much earth shaping and moving goes into all that, and for you to accurately portray that for players, and that's just a small piece of the world.
Yeah.
I bet you can't even build one really challenging hole.
Right.
Where all the tree placement and the bush placement and all the sand and the water and the shape of the green and the slopes, like, oh my God. And you want to build a world and populate it with all do you know what a massive undertaking it is to build a world?
Right.
Like, imagine starting up Minecraft and just running in a direction for like 6 hours. Like, there's no way you can build that for your opening game night, especially if you haven't been doing it a long time. So hear me. I'm going to bypass all that. You don't need all those trappings that we've been sold as DMs all these years to have fun. Yeah. What you need is one killer opening encounter with a good hook.
Yep. Because we're not being introduced to the entire world right now.
Right now.
On the first night, game night. We're not meeting the whole world. We're meeting this space.
Let me show you the leaves on this tree in Peoria. Like, no. Like...
Right? This isn't Romancing the Stone. We're not driving through the village where the bad guys are attacking. Hold on. I want to show you this other cornfield over here.
Yeah.
That's the church where I was born.
Yeah. You don't need all that. So,
yeah,
you need a nice key discrete space. You need 3 nice key discrete spaces. So let's just take the beginning of the canyon, the middle of the canyon, and the end of the canyon. And we don't need to know how the players commute between the two of them. Okay?
Right.
Skip the commute. We'll touch on this concept some more, but hear us now. Skip the commute, skip the mundane, get players right in the action. So that, as far as my concern, starting a game, Joe, that's number one to me, is I want to get players into the fiction, immersed in the world right away. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to stick them right in an encounter, right out of the jump, and get them rolling dice. Do you agree?
Oh, I totally agree. Like, that is like the prime way. I mean, looking at so much different media, it all shows us the same thing. We don't want to like be lulled in and everything. We want right up front. Any serial TV show will show you, any movies will show you. It starts in the action. It starts with something happening. It's not, well, I guess with rare exception, it's not just like walking down the street. You're starting on the street, trying to cross it, or here comes, holy ish. I'll have to work on that. Here comes this spaceship crashing to the ground, or this horse and cart is it's running off the rails. There's no driver. What happened to the driver? It doesn't matter, because it's barreling right towards you. Roll initiative.
That's it.
And hope to God you beat mine, because I'm the horse and buggy right now and someone's getting run over. Like Alex said, you want to start with something with the action. Star Wars, we get that great ship flying over, and it's already in the thing because they're being shot at. And oh my God, it's Darth Vader, and he's just caught Princess Leia. And oh my God, what is happening? And droids, start right in the middle of it. Indiana Jones, he's already at the temple. They're pulling aside the vines. There's blood all over the statue. Some of the porters are freaking out and leaving. We're already in the action.
We're already in it. As soon as we're saying this, I can hear there's somebody out there who's like, oh no, the slow burn is my trademark. I just like
slow burn with action.
I just like to just kind of let it spool out.
Slow burn, like a detective show?
And get people in. And I'm like, stop. Do not do that. Because, if that's your trademark, I'm sorry. But if you're starting your campaign for the first time, do not do that. If you're flipping through the channels and you're watching TV shows, right? You don't know a thing about them. Where are you going to stop? You're going to stop the one that instantly grips you. You're not going to sit there and your brain naturally is not going to sit there and try to make sense of a ton of information before it decides to get into the show. You really want a show that's going to grip you from the start. So DMs, don't do that to your players. Get them in the action as quickly as possible. Get them involved by rolling dice so it's not one-sided, right? It's not about me. It's about them.
Yeah.
And I want them rolling dice as quickly and as soon as possible. So do that.
Right?
Get on with it already.
I can definitely say I am guilty of running a slow burn start in the beginning of adventure. Not intentionally, just things ended up going slow. And that one was actually on film. We mentioned the roll for effort things you brought up in the letter. Mm-hmm. One of them was in the Prisoners campaign. I remember that, it's still burning there. It was one of those GM moments where it's whoa, I kind of flubbed the opening of that. It was just too slow when you guys first got to the Grove.
Yeah.
But then Whipdash threw something else together, and we had that whole other great scene where it picked up because we went and I got you guys rolling dice as you guys attacked that caravan that was transporting more of those crystals or stones or whatever. But I started out on a slow burn, so I'm guilty of it. I have done these slow start adventures.
Everything we're talking about is something I've messed up at one time or another.
Oh yeah.
But learn from our experience, right? Slow burn is not the way to go. And let me just tell you, if you think about it from the other side, if you look at it behind the sheet, you're a player. You just made this character. You just went through all these cool options and you came up with your cool character concept and you've got it ready to go and you made your awesome multi-shot range fighter and you're ready to get in the action with that fighter, with that character, and then nothing happens. Right.
And there's traffic on the road into Baldur's Gate. It's going to take an hour, guys.
You're going to sit in LA traffic for an hour and you're not going to roll any dice for an hour while I talk and you listen.
Right.
That's terrible. By the way, if you've been listening for an hour, please do not tune out because
The joke's on
yeah,
us.
the joke's on. Yeah, but not at the start of a campaign. If you're at the start of a campaign, don't do that to your players.
Yep.
Their characters have that new car smell. They want to drive them around
Yeah,
and,
they
and
want to
feel
warm
them
the
out.
tires up.
So yes, so put them in some stuff, like
Yeah,
right out the gate. And we're gonna have a whole section, Joe, I think, about putting players and innocents in peril. I think
Yep.
that's a meaty enough topic for another time.
Oh yeah,
But
heroes need peril that's like a cornerstone. That's a big topic.
yes, but at a minimum, you want a good hook because you
Yeah.
want to propel characters toward action on that first night and get them into some stuff. If you haven't seen the Runehammer video on three
I was
ways
gonna
to
bring that
start
up.
your campaign, right?
Yep.
The Prisoners of Moloch adventure is, I think, to this day my favorite one.
Chef's kiss.
Yeah, exactly. It's classic. It's perfect, I think, because it immediately throws players right into that action and gets them rolling dice.
Yeah, immediately. Yeah.
And-
Same with like the other ones right in there. There's the was it Duke Harold or I'm
Yep.
sorry, Burning in New Haven,
Burning a New
which
Haven.
leads into the Duke Harold. Yeah, but Burning in New Haven, that's a big one. Like same thing. It starts off, oh, okay, you got to deal with some guards right up front, kind of giving you like the heads up, but you can smell the fire and you come around the corner in the town square and they're trying to burn a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
Roll initiative.
What do you do?
Like damn.
Yeah,
You're
like
in it with witch burner, like witch hunters right there, and poor kids tied up to a post and they're like slopping oil on it.
yeah, and she's screaming.
Yeah,
What are you gonna do? Now,
exactly. Like these things start you right in. Like Prisoners starts you off in a cage,
yes,
and you watch the captors haul a guy out and throw him off a cliff, and they turn around, they're coming back for you.
yeah.
What are you doing?
Now I understand that there are a million ways to game, right? Like you could run, for example, Red Sword.
Yep.
And Red Sword, there's a minute where you go through the airlock and nothing happens. But I would argue that that suspense
Yeah.
really kind of gets players into it. And then the reality is they're in the first room and the peril happens because the mutated reptoids, they hear the scream or the claws. They see the dynamite all over the wall and the ceiling.
Yes.
Like, and then they hear the screaming and then the mutoids come rushing out at them, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
so
And
that
then
one,
the pulse wave from the dark star is hitting.
right? There's instantly a timer ticking down. So
Yeah.
don't misconstrue what we're saying. Even something like a ship exploration, like Red Sword, still starts you right in the action.
Yeah.
Because the Red Sword drops you off. You're in this strange place. The air's musty, and then it isn't very long at all before misery finds the players and they're in peril. That's what we're talking about, even in something like that with a little bit of a slower start. Like, it doesn't have to be, oh my god, the orcs are right on top of you, but it could be in 3 rounds, the orcs are going to be right on top of you, and then you just got to be in it.
Yep.
You got to be in it. Or you're in the tavern, 1d4 rounds later, the whole
Right.
thing is on fire.
Right. Media res. The opening of Predators. The gosh, what was that? The fourth movie or something? Third movie? It was the one with like Adrian Brody and Lawrence Fishburne, and it just had like a bunch of big names in it.
Yep.
That was the one where right start of the movie, like it starts like credits come up of a room, and the first thing you see clouds, and it pulls back, and dude's unconscious, just falling, free fall. What do?
Yeah.
You just wake up, you're in free fall.
Yeah.
What's going on? You have no idea how you got there.
Yeah, make your roll.
Yeah. What are you doing?
If that doesn't get your players pulling together as a team,
Right.
if that doesn't get your players excited about your game, if that doesn't get your players instantly immersed, then you need to find new players. That's all I'm saying.
Because that would get you hyped. You hear nothing but rushing wind as clouds whip past you. Everything is white, billowing around you. Then you're like, oh my gosh, yes, you are wearing a chute. It rips open. Boom. Give me a con save against that impact because you're not prepared for it. You just woke up.
Exactly.
And now you're drifting into a jungle. What is going on? The fudge.
Beep.
So close. Yeah, but no, like the media res, like start right in that action.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Because again, what we're building up to in terms of concerns about that first night is part of your job as a DM is to create an immersive, fun experience for your players. You're putting them up on center stage. The spotlight is on them. We talked for a long time, by the way, with Scotty about this concept. I think, by the way, after we stopped recording, so people miss this, but we talked for a long time with him about putting players up on the stage. You're sort of the director of the show. Like, you help pull the strings and move the curtains and all and put the spotlights there. But the reality is if you ever have to come up on the stage, like, you're only there for like 0.2 seconds and you want to get the heck off. Yep. And let your players be center stage. Let the action constantly be on them. Let the spotlight constantly be on them. Get them in the show as quickly as possible and get out of the way, and so that they can have fun with their brand new characters and just have a good time rolling dice and laughing and cheering and feeling like they're accomplishing something.
Yep. And I guess another big one since that started the campaign, and this is going to seem a little strange to start off with, just a little bit, but I promise you, I'm actually trying to make a point right here. See, the best thing to do in this situation is to try and put your players at ease. You want them to be comfortable. So it's okay if you act fool, if you make big foolish monster sounds, do it. Like, it's going to help loosen the players up. It's going to help loosen you up, kind of getting a little goofy, making the monster snarls. Like, just have fun with it. Loosen up and have fun with it. Well, you're going to have a better time. It's going to let your players almost have permission to be just as goofy, to try that weird voice. Like,
so back to our previous advice about bring the energy, right? Bring the energy. Like, you want to be excited and you want to breathe life into your creation. Again, not the whole world.
Yep.
But if you're putting them up against that orc that we were talking about with the giant bow that no man could pull.
Yes.
Right? You're going to describe that and those huge, thick black arrows with the tassels and the ribbons blowing in the breeze as that orc, like, closes an eye and takes sight. Like, what are you going to do? Right? So be vivid. Be vivid. Be imaginative. But most of all, to Joe's point, be energetic. And if that entails doing a crazy voice, if that entails like being over the top with your arms, if that entails like throwing a huge mini on the table, whatever you need to do to keep your players immersed and in the moment and rooting for each other and rooting for themselves and trying to save innocence, trying to save themselves, like that's going to create a killer opening campaign for you.
Yeah. And it's also going to help ease everybody into it.
Absolutely. And even if you're I'm not that good of a DM. I haven't done this very long. If you follow those simple behaviors, those simple steps, okay, of getting them in the moment, of getting them immersed quickly and rolling dice so they're doing stuff, they're taking action, and they're using their characters in fun ways, they're going to have a blast. So notice that none of that is about you. It's about them doing all that stuff, and as quick as you can get them doing that stuff, they're going to have a blast, and they're going to turn around, and suddenly they're going to talk about what a great DM you are, and maybe you'll get a nice email in the mail.
Right? And the other important thing, none of that is about this. None of it's about the rule book.
Nope.
None of it was about anything written in a book.
Nope, it surely isn't. Well, Joe, I feel like we've covered some meaty ground here. Yeah, absolutely. And I know you've been super active in the Runehammer community this week and elsewhere and all over online. At some point, I want to talk about this game that you're running with the council.
Yeah.
I don't want to give too much away. I'm thinking maybe next time after we've had another session under our belts, will be a good time to chat about it.
Right.
I also want to talk maybe a little bit about our Ghost Mountain game and maybe get some of your hot takes on it since I'm in the DM seat. But I think that's a teaser for another time.
Right? And it's a good teaser because, man, I tell you, running the council game, there are moments that have me sweating a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I can say the same about running Ghost Mountain for you guys in the Multicrew game. It's it's a little bit interesting.
Right. I'm looking forward to talking about both of those, man.
Awesome.
That's going to be good stuff.
Awesome. Well, Guys, gals, non-binary pals, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Ultimate Effort Show with Alex
And Joe.
and Joe. And Joe, take
Yeah.
us out.
In the meantime, until we meet again, take my hero coin and roll ultimate.
Oh, with the jingle.
Bonus content.
Yeah, bonus content.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody.